5 minutes past 10. Our talkback lawyer David Whiting is here to help you with free legal advice. 1300 222 774 is the number for free legal advice. 1300 222 774. And David, good morning to you.
Good morning, John.
Welcome to my workshop.
I'm impressed.
Do you like this?
Do you know how to use any of this stuff?
Oh, yeah, quite a few of them.
Yeah.
There's a little Colchester over there, the lathe. They're like the beginner's lathes over there in the corner.
I can see signs that say Milwaukee. I thought that was a beer.
No, they make tools.
Okay.
There's some swages and beadliners just over here, and obviously those are vices.
And you're not reading labels?
Behind me is a press. That's for bending sheets.
Yes.
And so what you do is you
This is not television, John.
Yeah. See this big yellow lever?
Yes.
You pull on that, and that brings the... there it is. You push on it. So that brings up this blade here against...
So did you spend all weekend?
Yeah, I just made a noise just to do that. No. I've played with some of these things in little weekend courses and things. Yeah, it's good fun.
All I can manage is a cheese making course. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. What sort of cheese?
A soft brie, a cream cheese.
Oh, very good.
Mm.
Oh, you've got hidden talents.
Yeah, very well hidden.
But this is kind of like your foundation. When you learn how to do this stuff with your hands, then you can learn how the machines do it automatically. But if you don't know how to do it with your hands and you don't understand how metal shapes and turns and how you cut a thread and so on, then you can't ask the computer to
You can't program it properly.
Yeah, or know what's going right or wrong. Yeah. It's pretty much how it works, isn't it?
It is. I must say I've been here for about 3/4 of an hour, fascinated with your guests and the way they're presented.
Well, it's, fair bit of... I guess... my thoughts betray me. I find it quite distressing. I'm really worried. There's a text message from someone here. Margaret Thatcher said you can't build an economy on opening doors for people.
No, you can't. You've actually got to start. Someone needs to make something so it can be sold so that the proceeds can be used to do something else.
Yeah, and so you can have as many service industries as you like. You can't have an economy that is just a continuous circle of service industries servicing each other.
No, well, someone's got to grow the coffee before you can start to make the coffee.
Yep. And if all you're ever going to do is import stuff and distribute it, you're going to implode.
Yes.
And you can't have governments constantly having infrastructure that's got no actual purpose other than to move people around. They've got to have a reason to move around.
Yeah, you've got to have somewhere to go. I remember driving through a country town and somebody made the observation they'd hate to be a mayor here because what could I do to attract business to the town to make it work? I mean, remember, we used to have little clothing factories all over the place as part of a textile clothing and footwear decentralisation process, particularly in the 50s and the 60s.
Where are your socks made?
These ones are made in China.
Probably.
But, there are some small sock manufacturers in Melbourne, but there are not many.
Oh, dear. Any legal gossip?
No legal gossip and only one item of homework, John.
Yes.
And that was, we had a lady last week who wanted to know whether she was worried about absentee taxes for her investment properties in a super fund. So she had two specific questions. The first question is a superannuation fund the kind of trust that's liable to pay the trust surcharge for land tax? The answer is no. It's an excluded class of trust. Right. The second question that she wanted to know was whether whether it would be liable to the absentee trust. And the answer, because there's another surcharge if you are an Australian citizen or permanent resident. If you're not a citizen or permanent resident and you leave a property vacant for a period of 6 months, you're out of the country and leave the property vacant for 6 months or more in a year, you pay an extra land tax. The answer is no, that doesn't apply to superannuation funds either. So she's got 2 wins. Yes,
that's very reassuring, but it also shows how complex some of these areas are, and you really need specific advice from someone who really knows it before you go too far down the path.
Yeah, very precise questions, very precise answers to very precise questions.
Yep. All right, anything else?
That's it.
Let's get to callers. Peter from Berwick is first up, and Peter, good morning to you at 10 minutes past 10.
Good morning, John and David. How are you?
Good, go right ahead.
About a month and a half ago, a charming young lady came to the door and served me with some damages writ for in excess of $500,000.
And what for, Peter?
it goes back to about 6 years ago. I borrowed a sum of money, about $70,000, and the interest rate that applied to that is 20% compounding, so it's grown to that figure.
How much was the original amount you borrowed?
About $70,000.
70,000 has turned into $500,000.
Yeah. Now, look,
How?
it's a fairly complex matter, and it'd take probably half an hour to explain the ins and outs of it. But there was I'm a builder of about 40 years history, and I got myself in a little bit of trouble. I needed a bit of cash to get out of the trouble.
Peter, is the amount they're seeking to recover, does it match your documentation? Does it look right?
Yes, yeah, it probably did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't you owe it?
Well, part of the deal was that, firstly, there was a lot of scaffold and tools that were used as security, and that's been seized.
Yes.
Secondly, there was a restraint of trade applied to me whereby I had to work for them for 3 years on a rate which became a carpenter's wage, basically. And so my earning potential was diminished.
Peter, let's start at a different point.
Yeah.
What assets do you have?
I got some assets, but not a hell of a... I haven't got $500,000 worth of assets.
No. I mean, what assets do you have?
I've got 2 mortgaged properties.
And do you have equity in the properties?
In one, I've got a little bit, and the other one probably be line ball at the moment, I'd say.
Right, because one of the things that you might like to try and consider is whether or not you can look at making a compromise with your creditors,
Yes.
with all of your creditors, including your banks.
Yep.
So my initial reaction was one of the things that you always look at is bankruptcy an option? Bankruptcy is rarely the first choice. But if you in fact admit that the money is owing and the maths are right and you don't have the resources, why would you not consider trying to do a deal with them whereby you sold the assets, gave them the money and they went away?
The properties have been on the market for a number of years, and I haven't been able to sell them, unfortunately.
Does that mean you're asking too much?
Well, the prices, I'm taking advice from real estate agents.
You can always sell a property, Peter. You just have to drop the price enough to the point where someone buys it.
Well, it gets to a point where the bank will take what's owed and there won't be very much left.
Well, a mortgagee sale is the worst possible way of disposing of an asset. Practically any market transaction is going to get you more than a mortgagee sale, isn't it?
So I suppose technically you would be described as being underground at the moment, Peter. Your total assets are far less than your total liabilities.
Yeah. I served them with a counterclaim and received a letter yesterday saying that I haven't complied with Order 13 of the County Court Civil Procedure Rules.
Yes.
Is there anywhere I can go? I can't afford to go and buy a lawyer at the moment.
Have you gone? But all the court systems actually have officers who assist self-represented litigants.
Yes.
So have you spoken to the person who fills that role at the county court?
No, I haven't.
Then I would start there.
Right.
But I think what you need to do, Peter, is actually work out what kind of negotiation you can have. I mean, if at the end of the day you ended up broke, it's better than ending up bankrupt.
Yep.
Because I'd rather start from zero than from, have the next 2 or 3 years putting up with bankruptcy.
Yep.
Look at a financial counsellor. Have you got any money at all?
Almost none. No, I'm now out of the building industry. I'm employed elsewhere.
Yes.
Virtually my wage paid.
Are you able to? Is there someone you can take with you to have a discussion with these people?
Not really, no.
Then have you considered having a talk to them yourselves?
Yeah. Oh, look, if I think I put it down in front of them, what's not there to be sued,
yes,
they may take it.
Well, I can remember dealing with 4 people who were in a situation similar to you, and what you really do is provide a very detailed statement of assets and liabilities.
Yep.
That's what I've got. Now the question then is, how much of that do they want to go away?
Yeah.
And if they propose to bankrupt you, well, at the end of the day, you're going to be bankrupt. unless you've got an argument that your counterclaim will bring it down to a reasonable level.
Yes.
But my suggestion is that what you want to do is look at a financial counsellor.
Yep.
So have a talk to your local council. Was it City of Casey? So have a talk to them and see whether there are counsellors that they can refer you to who can provide you with some direction.
Peter, the only thing I can possibly think of, did you understand the implications, or were the full implications explained to you of what 20% compound interest meant?
I knew that, but I didn't fully realise the other conditions in the agreement, and whereby it precluded me from building in Victoria.
Well, some of those things might be unreasonable restraints of trade, and the issue, you might be able to make an application to change the terms of an unfair contract. But at the end of the day, my view is you will owe them something.
Yep.
And the question will then be, it's the broader analysis rather than the specifics of the contract. The question is, how do you extract yourself from this with the minimum pain possible? And it's not by running a counterclaim.
Yeah, right.
Peter, good luck.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not sure we can help you any more than we have already. It sounds like a complex matter. I hope you can find people to give you some more specific advice and go through the documents. And thank you for calling today. In Wandon, Graham, good morning to you.
How are you, John and David? How are you?
Welcome.
Good. This regards to a rural property. To describe the property, we sloped down to what could be called flats at the bottom, with the creek at the bottom fence line and land rising again on the other side of the creek. The neighbour on the upstream side has brought in thousands of metres of topsoil or fill, to the point where he's capped all the springs on his property. There are numerous springs down there. Capped all the springs on his property.
Yes.
And interfered with the flow of the surface water so that those springs rise to the original surface, run sideways under the capping and come out along my fence line, and has reduced my bottom paddock to a swamp.
Yes.
Now, do I have any recourse?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
It's an action at VCAT under the Water Act for interfering with the natural flow of water. He will also require a permit from the council to undertake works, and works under most planning schemes involve any change to the natural surface of the soil. So the thousands of square metres of soil will constitute works for which he should have had a permit.
The council,
so you can talk to the council and you can go to VCAT on a Water Act matter.
And now, when I spoke to the council, they said, well, he's allowed to put a 1 metre of fill on there. Well, I would dispute that it's restricted to 1 metre. It's certainly been above 1 metre. But the 1 metre is not the issue. I mean, any amount of fill would have created this problem. So the fact that he's gone over a metre to about 1,200, 1,500 in places, I'm not concerned about.
That doesn't affect your rights under the Water Act.
Yeah.
What he's done is he's forced the watercourses to take a different route. As a result, he's effectively diverted water onto your property. You have rights under the Water Act, and you take the matter to VCAT.
All righty, Graham.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
And good luck with that as well. Carol in Bayswater waiting patiently to be next, from one water question to a Bayswater question. Morning, Carol.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Thank you.
Was that just a bit too cute, was it, Carol?
Possibly. But
I was pretending we didn't hear it, Carol. That was my approach.
Fine, I'll pretend too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ringing regarding a situation where my husband used to operate a business from home.
Yes.
But he hasn't worked in that business, and we let it lapse, and it's probably 15 years, up to 15 years since he ran it. I've got a letter from an insurance company addressed to a person I don't know, addressed to the company at our residential address yesterday.
Is it a company or a business name, Carol?
Sorry, it's a business name.
Okay. And your letter's addressed to that business name to your address, is that right?
That's right, yes, to somebody, and the name of a person at the company that I don't know. And right. I'm just a bit concerned about, are they operating at using our address, and what are we liable for anything, or what's going on?
No, but if it's not you, you're not liable, but you may need to make some attempt to prove that you're not liable. Can I suggest visit a government website, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission website, asic.gov.au. See if the business name is registered.
Right.
And if it is, then you might try and contact the people who now own it, or you might simply respond to the letter to the insurance company, because what they will have done is they will have done a search of the old state-based business name system, and they will have come up with your husband's name and address.
Yes.
And so you write back to them and say, we haven't carried on business in that name since 15 years ago.
Yes.
And you then use that, and then that becomes your response. But if it's someone else carrying on business under the name you used to have, that's not your problem in a legal sense, but it could be your problem in a practical sense if people start hassling you.
Yes, well, I was quite surprised to get a letter from the insurance company about it yesterday.
But it may not have any bearing. I mean, Carol, let me pose the question this way, David. If you let a company or business name lapse, how long before someone else can pick up on it and continue operations or start operations?
Three or 6 months. It's not a long period of time.
Yeah.
And,
and there are people who do that as a business. They snap up names that have lapsed in order to then make money out of selling them on.
Yes, it happens in domain names and computers quite often. So.
But even in business names.
Yes.
We should have sold it on and got some money.
Well, if somebody's already got it for nothing, I don't know what you're worried about, Carol.
But if you've got a good business name, I don't know, if you've got A1 Towing or whatever, then everybody wants that. And if you don't keep it continuously registered, then there are people who trawl through all the lapsed names just to see which good names come up and snap them up and then make a business out of selling them.
The other thing, Carol, is that you can have a reputation in respect of a name even if you don't have it registered. Right, so if you'd allowed the name to lapse but still continued under that name, then you would have some quality and some reputation in it. But look, you haven't used it for 15 years, write to the insurance company, tell them that. If you want to dot the I's and cross the T's, do an ASIC search to see if someone else has got it. Now, the catch is that if you create a business name in your own, for you as an individual, the database maintained by ASIC will not show your residential address. So it will show you as the registered owner of the business name, but there'll be no address attached to it. That could be why you've got it. Someone else has got it. The closest they can get to it is your name, or is your address from an old search. So
it might just be a matter of ringing the insurance company and saying you've made a mistake, and that'll be the end of it.
Could well be.
Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol.
Good on you, Carol. Look, Peter from Berwick called us a little while ago. He was the first caller with a very complex matter that 20% interest
$500,000
compounded from 70,000 to turn into $500,000.
Yes.
A builder. And a couple of people have texted in saying, I'm happy to help go through the papers with him. And Peter from Berwick, if you want to call back, we're happy. We won't give out people's names and phone numbers over the air, of course. But if you want to call back, we can put people in touch with each other. And Peter from Berwick, if you want to call back and speak to my producers, we'll see if we can facilitate you getting some of the offers, the volunteers offering to assist, who may be able to help you somehow, which would be a very generous thing for people to do. And Desley says, with Carol from Bayswater getting a letter from the insurance company, I had a similar letter, I just rang them, they acknowledged their mistake, problem over. And someone else says there is a scam going on at the moment with letters fraudulently going out to people and trying to frighten them into paying over money when they otherwise don't owe any.
Okay.
So that might be worth keeping in mind for Carol from Bayswater as well. Penny in Ballarat. Good morning to you, Penny. You're through to David.
Morning, David and John. This is about a summons for unpaid rates. And my query is, if the debt's cleared up before the court date, does that avoid extra costs? Because I imagine actually going to court will add to the amount that's owed.
Okay. Are you within the 21 days after service of the summons?
I'm not sure. It's not me.
All right. If you pay the amount in full, without, and that includes the costs shown on the summons.
Yeah, I know. There'll be the original rates plus cost for,
Yes. So you could ring the council and say how much to clear it today, pay it, it should then all go away, or ring the lawyer who's issued it on behalf of the council.
Right.
And then
if
it should
does
all
go
go
to
away.
court,
If you lodge a notice of defence, then the costs start going crazy.
yeah, that's what I thought. That's what
Yes.
I'll advise them. Pay up now.
Well, you ring the lawyer who issued the summons, how much to clear it today or
Yep.
next Friday or whatever it is, and then make sure you make the payment.
Right. Thank you very much. That's great
Thank you, Penny.
help.
Pleasure, Penny. 10:25. Juliet in Moonee Ponds. You're through to David Whiting. Good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, John. My situation goes back at least 12 months. I had part of my goods were in a container coming over from the UAE. I'd lived in Dubai for 3 years, and so when we packed up to leave, we put our things in to come over here. I chose a local company to do the shipping from Dubai. Unfortunately, when the goods arrived here in Australia, they're at the wharf in Sydney. When they arrived here, the company in Dubai went bust or whatever, so were not to be heard, so they wouldn't pay. The fees weren't paid for the goods as they landed here. So as it turns out now, my goods, along with some other families, expat families, have been left at the wharf in Sydney for 12 months.
It was a part container load, was it?
No, it was it was a part container. I only had like 12 boxes, and the main thing was my washing machine. But and there's other families with things in there like memorabilia stuff, things that are precious to them. Well, we can't get them released. The company keeps saying, we're trying to negotiate. Well, I don't even want to hear the figures. They haven't told me what they are, but they're trying to negotiate to bring them down into the thousands. But at this stage, it's just going on and on. There was a link with Hapag-Lloyd, who have got
the shipping company,
major company in Singapore, and the chap I spoke with there, he said, leave it with me, I'm still negotiating.
So, Juliet, what you've done is you've arranged with a company in the UAE to ship some goods over.
Yes.
And they consolidate them with the goods from other people.
Yes,
and they all arrived in Sydney, and what would normally happen is that there would be documentation authorising the release of the container to somebody here. Did that paperwork never arrive?
No. As soon as they got here, the company just said, look, they're having trouble with things. Initially, the company was still viable. They were saying, he even spoke to me and said, look, we're just having trouble with this. They're not agreeing to payments or something like that. And then after that, there was just no more word from them. And I tried to contact them again, ringing them in UAE, and there's no answer and everything. They actually do have a parent company from Britain, but they won't have anything to do, any link with them now either. Okay,
what are you trying to achieve, Juliet?
I'm trying to get my goods off the wharf, goods to my home. I've got 12 boxes of
but
things
as far
that
as the shipping, what does the
years.
shipping company here say?
They're saying they're negotiating. There's Hellas Imports. They're the ones who've at the wharf, and then there's the big shipping company, this Hapag-Lloyd.
I don't think it's reasonably fair to name everybody, Juliet, but keep going. Yep. Okay,
well,
who controls the goods on the wharf?
There are two different people. There's like an importer, and then there's a shipping company, and the shipping company, he actually sounded, managing director there was saying, yes, he's dealing with them in Singapore, trying to get the costs down, and just leave it with me. And meanwhile, the things are just sitting there.
And the goods are in Sydney. What you ought to do is look and see what their Civil Administrative Tribunal will allow you to do.
Yeah, I rang them.
I rang them
ages ago. I rang them I rang them in January or something. And they've just said it's nothing to do with them, it's a private company. I've done all that.
No, I'm suggesting that you actually look at issuing proceedings in Sydney in something equivalent to our Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. Yeah, they have one, and so it's an action there that would involve the shipping company and the customs clearance people.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, I'll try that.
I'll think about it over the week, and if I've got a better answer for you next week, Juliet, I'll tell you. All right?
Thank you.
All righty, Juliet. And Mark in Melbourne in the CBD. Morning to you, Mark, and you're through to David.
Good morning, John and David. Just a quick question. Recently been made the joint executor of a will. I'm interested in engaging a lawyer to assist with the process. The other party isn't. What's some good advice as to how best to proceed?
Does the other party have the skills and expertise to complete the probate application?
No.
So how do they propose to do it?
I'm not sure, which is part of the question.
Okay. Mark, what you want to do is buy a copy of the Will Kit, Will Kits Victoria, or Legal Kits Victoria. It costs you about $180. Yep. And you might go through that and have a discussion then with your co-executor as to whether or not you can agree to the appointment of someone. Now, well,
yep.
Is the estate complex? Is it large?
It's sizable, but not complex.
Then what's your... and I take it that you and this other person are both beneficiaries?
The other person is to a large extent, I'm to a very minor extent.
So what that really means is that in the great scheme of things, he'll end up paying more of the costs. I would have thought he'd be ending up paying a larger proportion of the costs. I suppose, Mark, you can't force him to engage a lawyer.
Okay.
What you might like to do is see whether or not you can agree with him about the scope of the work that's done by the lawyer. You might say, I want the lawyer to go to this point, to the point where I get a grant of probate, but do none of the administration. Quite often it's the administration where the cost is.
Okay.
So see if you can better define the task rather than what I might call an open cheque.
Ballparks, Mark, what's the estate worth?
6 figures.
Yeah, 6 figures could be a huge variation.
Could be anywhere $100,000 and $1 million.
So,
look,
ballparks, Mark, what are we talking about? When debts are settled and everything's being distributed.
Yeah, upwards of $1 million.
Okay, so that's 7 figures. So what you need to explain to your recalcitrant co-executor is that you can be penny wise and pound foolish, is the phrase. You can think you're saving money and in doing so cost yourself money.
Where you should be able to end up, Mark, is if you define the tasks that need to be done better. I would have thought that you would be paying well under $10,000 for the work that you need done.
For $1 million estate.
For $1 million estate. So you're under 1%. Depending on how you scope the work that needs to be done, you could be at 0.5%.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
And it's just a matter of economics, isn't it, David? You sit down and say, well, if we go down that path, it's going to take this long and cost that much. If, on the other hand, we spend some money and get someone who knows what they're doing to do it, it'll cost this much and take that long. Which way would you rather handle it?
Yeah, particularly if you're both working and you can go off and continue to earn money at the same time.
Yeah. Some people want to do everything hands-on, just like some people want to build their own house or whatever it might be.
Or their own cars, John.
No one would be that stupid. Mark, good luck with that one. David, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you, John.
Have you got used to the workshop environment?
Yeah, I'm not. I've got to warm up. My fingers are a bit cold.
Yeah, well, we're not here for the comfort and the amenity. We're here to look at the things people do in a workshop like this. Anyway,
thank you, John.
It's very good of you, as always, to take the trouble to come out and join us at our various exotic locations. And Peter did ring back from Berwick with the considerable inflated debt with the 20% interest, and we've put him in touch with the people who made offers of help.